Hi there, welcome to another video, and I think this will be one of these videos where I don't have a certain subject. It's a bit like poetry or writing a song. Um, you know, you do it in different ways. And I think this will be more about, well, it won't be about anything particular, but when I do that, I start speaking and it will develop. But I think what I want to start off by talking about, what I feel is spiritual awakening. I think today I thought I wanted to do a talk on this. I seen something today on the internet. I seen a post about they're inventing or trying to invent some drug that can bring on a spiritual awakening, and crazy things that they come out with. But it doesn't work that way. You know, in this field, the spiritual community, the spiritual field, people before the lockdown and well after spent, you're talking about financially rich people, and they travel all around the world to all different ascended masters, people that have done so much ascension and the spiritual topic of spiritual awakening, and a lot of them doesn't happen. It's not so cut and dried as just taking a tablet. It's very simple. It's very simple, but it's a tablet doesn't cut it, and the reason it doesn't cut it is because in awakening, you awaken from your pain. You awaken by facing yourself. Take a tablet, because the truth is there's no miracle cures. That's the thing. When I had this unexpected spiritual awakening, I didn't even know what a spiritual awakening was. I never heard anything about it. Unexpected. And I remember I sat down. I remember it was on my bed, and sometimes it can be, I like these couch beds that you get. I've always liked that. But anyway, I sat down one day and had enough. And I remember because I really had it, right? And I think because of the strength of my personality and everything that happened before, it brought on the awakening. And then I started to go through all these shit. And when it first started happening, because I was going through so much healing, I was going through a lot of crying and stuff, and because there was a lot of healing going on. But I'll tell you right now, I've been on this journey for just under 10 years, and it's an everyday inward journey, right? That's what it is. It's cold hard ascension is really just facing yourself and lots of meditation. You're basically doing emotional work. You're feeling what you feel. And there's no, like I say, there's no quick fixes, right? It's not something, that someone can just come along with, because you're talking about a deep process. A lot of people get this awakening because they're depressed. Jim Carrey was depressed. They say Eckhart Tolle was like that. I was like that. Now, this doesn't happen every time, but depression or being really down can put people... It's almost like an animal being cornered if it's scared. something's going to manifest, right? And this is spiritual awakening, and there's a lot of ignorance out there. And also, I want to talk about the third eye. People also talk about this, and this is in the subject of awakening also. This is one of the things that awakens. A third eye it's all to do with alignment. When you start to awaken, you're starting to become in alignment. And this is the correct way that your energies and chakras and third eyes are all meant to align. Because you're really aligning all the made up names and chakra names and colors. Everything's made up. What's happening in the awakening process is you're just aligning with your source. Right? And that's why everyone's spiritual awakening is different, you see. Because everyone's higher self, you could say, is unique to that individual. And then, as you awaken further, from my experience, I started to tap into knowledge that later I found out was in Buddhism. So that tells you that Buddhism is pretty much the truth. Now, I'm not into religion, but I'm just saying that this is what I discovered in this awakening. But that's it, and the third eye, what's the name for it? Decalcify, is that the word for it? But that's what happens. You start, as you align your because your third eye is really based on the truth. It shows you things that is the real reality, even though you think it's like an abstract reality. The abstract reality is actually the physical reality. The third eye is actually the truth. But it's got to awaken through the spiritual awakening process. If you awaken it too soon, this is why some people, they'll take something like acid and they'll be crazy for the rest of their life. They'll go crazy because they're not ready for that third eye thing. Right? This is why spiritual awakening happens when it does. It's when you're ready to become oneness with God. Right? This is the thing. It happens in the perfect divine time moment. When you decide. And that's it. I just wanted to pass this on. There's no miracle cures. I take supplements every day. I take 5-HTP, which is a very good supplement. I take all different types of vitamins, because it's good for the body. But when you're talking about spiritual awakening, you're talking about something that is beyond anything the physical can comprehend. It's the deepest thing. Because you're interacting with your infinite self. There's nothing deeper. Than that, and obviously, babies that are born into, when parents have children and they've had spiritual awakenings, like a twin flame situation, imagine the kind of upbringing that child is going to have. I feel bad when I see asleep parents having children, and I think, what's that kid going to learn? But that's a talk for another video. That's the thing I can talk about on another video. But yeah, this is the thing. But in that spiritual awakening, like I just said a second ago, you got asleep people having children because they're bored. When you start to awaken, you don't do things because you're bored, because your authentic self starts coming through. That's what the awakening process does. You got this authentic self, which is the divine self, that starts coming through. Now, for a lot of people, it's when they're really depressed, and that's when the awakening can happen. And that's how it was for me, unexpectedly. Up until that point, I was living a life that I didn't really know what I was doing. A bit innocent, but innocence plays a big part in it also. It's what I've learned with this. I've learned so many things, but one of the things is that there's a lot of childish or childlike nature about awakening. Like you're going into the unknown, you don't know what you're going into. And what you're going into is just pure presence. And in that presence is this orgasmic euphoria love, which is the real self. The self is not the experience, nor the labels, nor the skin color, none of that kind of stuff. The self, the real self, is just orgasmic love. That's what we all are, our true nature. And yeah, and it's a very deep experience, but it's so simple as well at the same time. And it happens when I had this awakening, it's like I just became present. And then that authenticity part come through, and it was like I knew how to awaken. We all do. We awaken, we're meant to awaken. We just basically have a dream, or dreams, many dreams. Sometimes it can be many lives, until it's time to return to the divine source, which is within you. And then you start to go in this path of, it's almost like you're becoming, in awakening, very meditative. You're becoming more presence, and and your breathing starts altering as well. I wasn't someone that practiced meditation or anything before this. All the meditation I do, I created it myself from this awakening, from this divine thing within me. And like I say, I'm just trying to pass it on. We're going through a global awakening where people are waking up a little bit, but then when you go beyond that, then we have to go through the spiritual awakening. And this is why this COVID-19 exists and all this craziness, because the system doesn't want that. Because awakening means control for the system is over, because awakened people don't live in fear. This is why I am the same now, pretty much, with the way I am now, since before the lockdown. Right? I don't really get triggered, because I'm always in presence, always in meditation. If anyone thinks that they've triggered me, that's a reflection of you, because we perceive our own reflections. For example, if you stand up for yourself, the narcissist will start twisting it and calling you crazy, when actually you just stand up for yourself. And that's what you need to make people aware of when they're like that, is that what they're doing. But there's always also a problem in that. Also, narcissistic people won't accept that as well. So the best way to lead is by example. That's how you really lead. And actually, we're always actually going through our ascension, but it happens super fast once you start to wake up. Awakening is just becoming self-aware, paying attention to presence and what you feel. And then you become more meditative and more meditative, and then when you're in this meditative state all the time, you get relentless knowledge. And anyone can do this, right? But you won't do it properly until the outward world you've had enough of it. But that's why this is all out there, because they don't want this. The last thing the system wants is people waking up spiritually, because the system is a demonic force called Illuminati that works in close by dimensions. It feeds off our fear. If you don't have any fear anymore, then they can't get their feed, and love and oneness and this kind of thing kills these forces. That's why that kind of demonic films where they show the cross, the reason it'll run from the cross isn't because of Jesus, but it's the love that someone like Jesus Christ would represent, and that kills demonic forces. But yeah, that's how you spiritually awaken. Spiritual awakening is a deep process that happens when your authentic side decides, when your heart space decides. And I'm just going to leave it there for. Please do visit my website, which is www.lovelightfamily.com. Thank you for watching and listening.